Our next speaker, you met her briefly just earlier during the introductions. She is the new STEM coordinator for Orange County Public Schools. She's also the P-Cell coordinator, but I don't fully understand that, so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what that is. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree here from UCF. And go Knights! And on top of that, she is a mom of 3 sons, so she really is going to be able to speak to this. So without further ado, Jeanne Neff from Orange County Public Schools.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm very excited to share some of our information and some of the things we're doing in Orange County Public Schools to make those connections with our parents. One of the things that's really funny and startling to look at, I just want to briefly talk about this slide up here. Basically, this shows you an extreme example, but parents spend about 10 to 49 hours a week, depending on how involved they are, with taking their children to sporting events and to dance classes and to all kinds of different things. And their aspirations are they want to get their child to the point where they're going to get a scholarship to college through those sports, and they're going to go on to become a professional sportsman, sportswoman. And if you look here, this young lady, her mother drives her basically 20 times a year back and forth from Ohio to Chicago, because she wants her to have the best coach and the best equipment, the best place to basically practice. And yes, this young lady did receive a scholarship to Oregon, which I thought was kind of strange considering that she lives in Ohio and practices in Chicago. But she basically spends about $20,000 a year for her child to play sports. And yet when we look at a recent Harris poll, about 24% of parents say that they're willing to spend some extra money for their child to excel them in science and in math. And so it's quite a difference in what we're putting value in. And so we have to kind of change that mindset. When we look at helping with homework, one of the things that what the parents say is that 22% of them say, I'm just too busy. I just don't have time to sit down and do homework with my children. And then 32% of them say, well, they just don't want me to help. And you saw that kind of in that video where they were like, that's not how my teacher does it. So that's definitely something that parents have experienced. And then finally, the really scary one is that 46% of them say, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't understand the new math. I don't understand why they're not getting it. So one of the things we're doing with Orange County is we do have our parent institutes. And so on March 1st, we have a parent institute for parents at Evans High School. And what we're offering is that for an hour, we have experts in their fields, and they talk about and help educate the parents on what kind of things their children are doing in the schools. They break it into elementary and into secondary. So there's plenty of information for our parents. That's an important thing, is to get them to that comfort level. What really is going to make our children successful is a partnership. It cannot just be on the schools. It cannot just be on the home. It has to be a partnership. So there has to be that combination of quality education, quality teaching, parental involvement, and content knowledge, making sure our children are understanding the content. Getting them through all of that will give them to that successful place. So how do we make our connections? One of the most important things that we know is that the adults in a child's life are the ones that make the most impact on their success. And so we have to understand that in the past, schools were very small. They were very much communities. Parents and teachers lived in the same neighborhoods. They were neighbors. They'd see each other at barbecues. They'd socialize with each other. And so there was this sense of community, and there was a sense of partnership. What we find now is with technology, and I don't want to bash technology, but with technology, we have huge schools now. We have high schools with almost 3,000, 4,000 students. And so what's happened is it's kind of become an us against them mentality of, rather than working together, let's blame each other for the shortcomings. And that's not what we want. We want it to become back to that partnership, to that idea. Because the bottom line is this, whether I'm a parent or a teacher or an educator, my goal is to make sure that my child is learning. And that's what we all want the same goal. We want our children to be successful. We want them to go on to be bigger and better than we are. And so that's one of the important things. So what are we doing in Orange County? Well, one of our key goals is communication, making sure that we communicate with parents, whether it's through Connect Ed, which is basically a messaging system through the phones. We do emails, we do text messages. We also have several programs in place. We use Progress Book, which is our grading system, but it also has a part to it where the teachers can post homework and due dates and information. Additionally, we have our Edmodo, which is like a Facebook for education. And the kids love it because they can go on, they can blog to each other, they can post examples of things they've done. The teachers can say, hey, look what we did today. And the parents have access and the children have access. So it's a community builder right there. We also have Remind 101. This is new, and I love this as a parent because it's a text message that I get from the teachers saying, hey, your child has homework in biology tonight. Please make sure you check that. And so constant communication is important in making sure that we are getting the information out. And that's one of the keys to STEM as well. How do we get our children interested in STEM? We want to make sure that we are telling the parents about these opportunities, about these parent institutes, that we're telling them about, hey, there's a STEM competition. UCF is hosting a Girls in Engineering weekend. Those are the things the parents need to know about. And if they don't know about it, that's our job as educators to make sure that it's out there. So how do you, as a parent, how do you foster a love of STEM for your children? Well, it's very simple. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but things that we find right now that are going on is the first thing is talk to your child. Find out what your child likes to do. Find out what your child doesn't like to do, and make sure that you are fostering that love. Make sure that you find what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are. The second thing to do is to make sure that you balance their needs. A child who's hungry or a child who's tired is not going to want to learn. And so you want to make sure that you're meeting their physical needs, but emotional needs as well. Oftentimes we expect our children to be successful every single time. But a lot of you sitting in here know that when you have projects, sometimes those projects are not a full success. So our children need to understand that it's okay for us to fail, and to learn from that failure and to move to the next step without it becoming a huge blow to their self-esteem. And of course, if we have those two things in place, the intelligence part comes along as well. We want to make sure also that we share our history with our children. Children are not going to value the technology and the things that they have. They don't value that they have that iPad. They've always had an iPad in front of them. You saw that statistic. But if I sit down and I tell my children, hey, when I was a kid, I had to go to the library and I had to open this little box that had all these little cards in them. And then when I went through all the little cards, I found a book, and then I had to go to all these shelves and I had to know something called the Dewey Decimal System. And so them understanding my history helps them to appreciate what they have now. And that's important because we want them to understand that what they have now is going to be outdated when they have children. And who is going to create that new and exciting technology? That's going to be them. And so that's definitely something we want to do there. We also want to create them a scientific rich home. Little less SpongeBob, a little more Jacques Cousteau is what we're looking for. And so we want to make sure that rather than just going to an amusement park, go to the amusement park and say, hey, that ride was amazing. How do you think it happened that we didn't fall out of it? Did you feel the G's? I mean, just everyday talk with them and taking them to museums, watching things that are educational, again, age appropriate. One of the fun things to do is to go online and find fun home activities that they can do, that you can do together. Oh, look, we've got a bunch of recyclables. Hey, let's do something with that. And so these are just fun, inexpensive activities that will help to really foster that love. Tie into everyday life. Tie into everyday life. That means that explain to them that, we're going to make something for dinner tonight. What kind of STEM activities are we doing? Oh, we're measuring. We're using math skills. If we don't measure this right, what's going to happen? A lot of it is how we talk to them and how we make them see that what they're doing is STEM related. Another thing is valuing education and innovation. A lot of times that we look at musicians and movie stars and people who are famous in sports, and we give them the accolades and we give them the money and the fame. And one of the things that we need them to understand is that scientists and people who are out there in innovating technology are just as famous and just as wealthy. So if they don't believe you, ask them to look up Bill Gates, and they will tell you, definitely someone with a lot of brains and a lot of money. And then the last thing is teach your children to think critically. And that's hard to do because we want to, they're so cute when they're little and they talk to us in their baby talk, but we need to make sure that we're asking them questions. Oh yeah, I see the balloon. What color is the balloon? We don't think of that, but as parents, we are teaching them from the moment they start. And one of my favorite things one of my favorite trainings that we do with our teachers, it's called Bridge to STEM. And what we do is we provide them with blocks, and we provide them with little ramps that are made out of cove molding and a marble. And we say, hey, can you make this go down the ramp, turn a corner, and then jump from one ramp to another? And we're talking 5-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds, we have them do this. And they love it. They love it. And they're playing, but we know what they're doing is they're problem solving, they're having to work cooperatively together, and they're having to do some STEM. They're going to have to measure and figure out how to get it to where they want it to go. And so it's very important. One of the things, the last thing I want to say to you before I end is I took my son to see the Lego movie. And he's 9 years old. Loves Legos. Loves them. And he'll sit for hours and put his little Legos together. And he's got his own little Lego world that nobody's allowed to touch. And so one of the things that struck me in the movie was they talked about the difference between the people who follow the instructions and the master builders. And my son right now is one of those follow the instructions kind of kid. And I want him to become a master builder. Because a master builder is someone who takes the instructions, throws them out, and comes up with something even more exciting and better than what was in those instructions. Thank you so much.